What's up guys, Roddy here, and so today there's a lot to say here, and this is probably going to end up being one of the most controversial, criticized videos that I've ever done or maybe ever will do. This is my review of the Galaxy Z Fold 3. I've recorded this video 3 times and trashed it. So today, I've made a decision on what I think of it. Let's talk about it. So this is a device that has pros and cons, and we all know that there's no perfect device out there when it comes to cell phones, right? So what you have to do with this device is you have to figure out and decide for yourself if the pros outweigh the cons. So let's kind of dive into it. There's plenty of videos out there that talk specs, that talk, in depth what these are. They kind of read the spec sheets. That's all the review really is. And this device has been around for almost a year now, and I've had it for about 6 months. So I'm not going to dive too deep into the specs, but we will talk a little bit about them. Snapdragon 888 chipset. This one's got 256 gigabytes of storage. Along with that, you've got 3 12 megapixel cameras on the back, and full HD in all their Samsung glory, inner and outer displays, just at the top tier level. And then finally, some other neat little hardware tricks that you have is you have a physical fingerprint reader that doubles as a power switch, and support for this guy, the S Pen. So let's dive in. First, I want to tell you how I shopped for this device, and I will tell you kind of my recommendation, why I did it, and why I think you should do it, and it's why I recommend shopping for this device this way. First off, design. So I have a case on it, and we'll get into that a little bit later, and I'm not going to take it off, and I'll tell you why later as well. But coming around to the front side here, you have a very thin display on the front. This is not your conventional regular candy bar style device. This is very thin. It's definitely very, very narrow. When I say thin, I mean narrow. But there's a lot of great things about that. First things first, for me, I was the type of person that before I bought this device, I was on the go a lot. I was doing a lot of my working and office stuff on a mobile device. And I had 2 devices at the time. I've had a Samsung in one pocket and an iPhone in the other for the longest time. And those were my kind of devices that I used. I was at times not able to just grab a laptop or even a tablet. I was on the go, in the field, having to do most of my work on a cell phone. So for me, this device on paper made a whole lot of sense. It didn't have some top tier flagship type stuff like the cameras, which I was a little nervous about because I am a mobile shooter, primarily a mobile shooter. So that kind of made me nervous a little bit, but I had seen a few videos where I thought that the video and picture quality was really, really good. And so those were some things that I wanted to shop before I bought this device. I mean, heck, this device is still almost $2,000, folks. That's expensive. Doesn't matter who you are, that's just an expensive device. But again, I kind of see the play on it where this is one of those devices that's almost like a 2-in-1 device. It's definitely a hybrid, top tier, top spec, most innovative device that you can buy, right? But I still was a little nervous about the cameras because I was going to upgrade from a Note 10 Plus to this. And so I was just nervous because I wasn't 100% satisfied with my Note 10 Plus camera. One of the reasons why I carried an iPhone and started carrying an iPhone. So I wanted to see just how good those cameras are. And well, they weren't bad. What I did to try to shop for this phone to make sure that I was going to be okay with some of the things that some of the reviewers talked about. Was I watch reviewers, but some of the complaints they had, I didn't think they would be necessarily complaints or issues that I would have with the device, such as the more narrow front screen, the, of course, ridge that's in the middle for the display, those cameras. So what I did was I went to my carrier, which is AT&T. I went to a few carrier stores and would spend, anywhere from 5-10 minutes with this, maybe 15 minutes talking to an associate about it, just telling them I'm shopping, trying to get in the market, or going by Best Buy on a Friday night and just hanging out playing with this guy. The only real thing that I wasn't able to test in depth was the S Pen. On top of that, AT&T and Samsung had a deal going that if I traded my Note 10 Plus in, I got $800 off this device. So a device that's already about $1,700-1,800 meant I was only spending right at $1,000 for it. I didn't think that was too terrible. That's kind of typical smartphone realm nowadays. And so I picked up this device back in January, and it's been a great device. So let's talk first about performance. And for me, in typical Samsung fashion, just like with my Note 10 Plus and that device almost being 3 years old, rolling into the Z Fold 3, no hiccups. I mean, both out of the UI and out of just software in general. All my apps, from social media to QuickBooks to calendar to everything that I have done on this device, and I mostly use Google services, have just worked flawlessly, almost like this phone was made by Google. From Gmail to photos, the whole 9 yards, it's worked fantastic. No hiccups, no issues, password memories, the being able to log in and use a fingerprint reader, just the whole 9 yards. Every feature and everything that this device does and then some has worked really, really well. I've had no issues, no glitches, nothing like that. And that's not to say that it was that great out of the box. And I, to be honest with you, I'm not an unboxer. There's plenty of unboxing videos you can go watch. I knew before going in to buy this, the settings I would have to change, the developer settings I would have to change, and how to make this device kind of my own for what I use it for. So I spent maybe an hour or two getting this set up just the way I wanted it. And then from there, making sure that I use this just like I would use any other device moving forward, so that the UI could learn how I use the phone so it could better suit me in my everyday life. After the typical 10-15 days with the phone, I was getting great battery. Everything was doing fine, doing things the way I needed to. The machine learning was just really, really fast and more advanced than most phones that I get nowadays. So kudos to Samsung for that. Even things like predictive text, certain things that I write or say, or the way that I speak, it was already figuring that out. Some of the things I changed, I of course went from Samsung's keyboard over to the Gboard. Game changer. And that's typical of most of the stuff that I'm using. I'm putting a lot of Google stuff on this phone, like I mentioned before. But as far as performance goes, as far as any hiccups, any issues, any glitches, any apps crashing, any of that stuff, stuff taking forever to load, animations hanging up. I mean, even things like being able to force everything to go full screen on this large screen and be able to rotate whenever I turn it, all of that works well. I don't mirror this screen on the inside. I have a set of screens and pages that I use with certain apps and widgets on this outside display, and when I open it up, it's a whole new set. None of this has stopped it. None of this has hung the phone up. None of it has crashed or not worked or not done what I wanted it to do. It's been absolutely a beast and a powerhouse and flawless when it comes to the performance of it. And basically, it's been a great user experience for me. Let's talk about the S Pen. And there's not a ton to talk about. It's not different than any other S Pen that's out there. It only works with the inner display, doesn't work with the outer display, which is not really a big deal to me. I think a lot of people have kind of complained and talked about that, but for me, that's kind of how I use the device. There's been times where I've had the S Pen in my hand and I had the device closed and I'd be like, oh yeah, it doesn't work that way. And I just use my finger because this is so narrow on the outside that you don't really have the space to use the S Pen unless you turned it sideways like this, and then why would you do that? So yeah, I mean, it works like an S Pen. That's all I can tell you. One of the things I was really afraid of with this interior screen, and we'll kind of segue from S Pen over to design a little bit, is I was really worried about, with the S Pen, this inner display feeling plasticky and kind of rubbery when I write on it, but it feels really solid actually. And you know, I've been pretty impressed with the design that Samsung has given us here, and this third iteration of what we get. So since we're talking about that, let's focus a little bit on design, and then we'll finish up with cameras and kind of my conclusion, I guess. So it seems like I'm giving this all high praise, right? I mean, great performance, great battery life now that I've got it set up correctly. The S Pen works really well. Is it just the perfect phone out there? No. This, look, the way that Samsung is doing a foldable device, it's not for everybody. And I get it. We can kind of agree to disagree here. But for me, this was a very good design. You can see I have a case on it. See if I can get that close enough. You can probably see it in other videos, but you can see I have a case on this. It took me a long time to find a case that I really liked. A lot of the cases do not protect this outer hinge. It's glossy, which is a con for me. That's one of the things I didn't like about the design. But outside of this case, and the reason that there's a reason I'll take this case off, I'll tell you in a minute, but outside of this case, just naked phone, this thing feels extremely premium. I don't think there's a lot of reviewers that talk about how nice this feels in the hand when you don't have a case on it. For me, I really enjoyed the design that Samsung had here. We'll talk about some of the things I liked and didn't like. So the first thing that I didn't like was you can't see it on this case. Again, another reason why it has that, but down here at the bottom, right here on this edge towards this back hinge, that's the back hinge. You guys can see that. So towards this back hinge at the bottom down here, there's a gap there. There's a gap there, and that gap really made me nervous because I'd heard all these people having like these micro scratches under the screen where pixels went out. You could see them, they turned white, and I was like, I can't deal with that. If that happens, I'm gonna freak out. So I looked long and hard for a case that filled in that gap, and this one has that. And there's other cases out there that do that as well. But also I noticed within just the first few weeks of owning this device, a device that I was very cautious with. If I used it, I typically made sure I used it with two hands or I was sitting and had it propped up, and that if it fell, it would not fall very far. But I was just very careful with this device. No putting it in a pocket with keys, no sitting on it, never like tossing it on a table or anything like that. And as careful as I was, I had some minor little nicks and scratches show up on the outside. Very tiny, and they were mostly little nicks. They weren't really scratches. They were just like little pings where you could see that the black was missing and there was some silver there. And one of those areas was where it says Samsung on this exposed hinge. So knew I had to get a case. Tried to find some screen protectors. None of them really worked. I do have one. It's a micro scratch. You can't really see it that bad, but it is on this front screen. I love the thinner, more narrow front screen because I'm a one-handed texter. I'm usually drinking a cup of coffee and looking at social media in the morning and flipping through Twitter and texting, and so having these two things do different stuff where I'm drinking and texting and moving, that's great. For me, that was one of the main things, was I wanted something that could easily one-handed text. This S Pen, actually in this case being on the edge right here, made it even better to hold in one hand, way more secure. You can see it's very much cradled in my palm. Granted, I got big hands, but yeah, it was easier. Even flipping it around and taking pictures, just it feels more like a little, you know, normal little point and shoot camera. So I love that about it. And then being able to unfold it and have a smaller tablet. Again, large hand, so I can hold it like this with one hand as well. Or flip it this way if I'm wanting to write a very long email and I got to use my thumbs, or watching a movie or video. It's just very easy form factor for me to use, and it just worked so well. Again, it came from knowing through ways of shopping and the things I did. So the design for me, my preference, how I use the device, what I prefer, how I like to use it, really, really great. But there are things about it that I didn't like. One, I felt it's super fragile. Just throwing that out there. I know I've seen people chunking them around, tossing them, saying it's the strongest one ever. And it's got Gorilla Glass, Victus, and all this kind of stuff on it, right? But I babied this, guys. I don't baby my other devices as much as I babied this one, because I was scared of dirt getting in the bottom and the inner screen getting something in it and closing it, and something being there and messing that screen. I was just really careful with this device, because I got a good deal on it, but it's still an expensive device. And so for me to have a few nicks and scratches on it made me think this is too fragile for the everyday person to carry around. I mean, if you're somebody that's tossing this in a bag, or you know, tossing on a table, or you know, just using it like a normal phone, you know, put it in your pocket with your keys or whatever. This makes me nervous, guys, and that's one of the things that I hope that Samsung fixes. The fingerprint was great. I love the button placement on the side here. That's really, really neat. But Samsung had these really nice, slick, flat black bezels that matched the matte finished glass on the back. And then you had, I'm gonna pop this open, then you had this shiny hinge. Why? Everything else was matte black, but that glossy hinge that just was big, and you have to hold it like this and you just get fingerprints all over it. I really hope that the next iteration, the Fold 4, is just all matte.
I kind of have a thing for matte black.
Just make it all matte. It just, whether it's brushed aluminum, whatever, even if this is stainless steel, just cover it with a matte finish or something. I don't know. It's just terrible being glossy. And I have the same complaint with iPhone's glossy trim and pixels, and just make things matte, guys. We have to touch these devices with our hands. This dude is thick though. And when I say thick, I mean thick with 2 C's. I don't mean wide. This is wide. It's not wide. And it's pretty narrow. And unfolded, it's very thin. But when you put this dude together, that is thick. Now, this phone is heavy as well. But because I'm able to kind of hold it really cradled in my hand, and it's not stretched, I didn't get a lot of fatigue just holding it and using it as a phone. Same goes with when unfolding it. It dispenses the weight a little bit better. So it feels pretty light like this as well. In a pocket, in a bag, you're definitely going to feel it. The baggier the clothes, the more you're really going to notice it. It's going to flop around. And then if you're wearing tighter clothes, it's going to be harder to just jam this thing down. So it's thick. You're going to notice the thickness of this bad boy. So finally, let's get to the end of this and let's talk about the cameras. So I've taken a lot of photos and videos with this. I'm going to drop some of these in here. We're going to piece all this little ending together. If you don't know, I'm somebody that shoots a lot of mobile video and mobile photography. As I've mentioned many times before, I prefer the processing of Samsung's cameras. It's going to give me that more vibrant, eye-catching, those nice crisp colors, contrasty. It just overall has this look that Samsung's always had, and they've dialed it back a little bit to give it a little bit more natural look, which I think has become even better than the competition. I was really impressed with the low light capability. It's definitely gotten a lot better than my Note 10 Plus was. It definitely felt like an upgrade. And to the credit of these cameras, even though they aren't the highest spec, I think a lot of people have discredited them for that, and they're not giving them quite the credit that they deserve. We'll take a look at some of the, right here, some of the pictures that I took inside with the selfie camera, as well as the main sensor, show you some of the cool, neat little features and tricks that it does. I mean, it's just really a versatile camera system. Now, moving outside, it's a completely different story. If you've got good lighting, natural sun, that sort of thing, you know, you're gonna be hard pressed to have anything to complain about here, and that's with all three cameras. But, and this is a big but, and I take a big sigh here, this is not the best Android video machine, and none of Samsung's devices are. All right, so this is a night shot of video on my Z Fold 3. This is just the main lens. No, this is ultra wide lens. Ultra wide lens at night, super dark here. That is the only light out here. It's extremely dark, no light. Neighbors got some lights on. Ultra wide, super steady mode. So you can see what it's like at night. This is very dark, very dark. So just a wide angle lens, not the ultra wide. At night, super steady mode on. You can see how dark this is. That's my house over there. You can't even see it. It's pitch black. 8 o'clock at night. Yeah, it's very dark. So here's the main camera, no super steady on. Look how much brighter it is. For some reason that super steady makes it darker. But look at this, you can almost see the moon. This is all handheld, no gimbal. See how steady this is. Not bad. So this is portrait video mode with the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 3. It's pretty good. We're inside, kind of here in my studio. Has some studio lighting going on. Yeah, I think this looks pretty good. About as good as you can expect. And of course you can change it. Let's change it here. We'll go to some different settings. See how crazy this gets with Samsung. They always add all these features that are a little wonky. Switch here to where background is black and white, and then I'm in color, and then we can add these weird effects that Samsung always has. The good thing is I have the strength of the blur in the background turned down. You can obviously make it more or less. I've got it on 1, which is what they call, which I think gives you the kind of best look. And this is with the front facing camera. See what you think. This is inside my studio, kind of optimal lighting. Looks pretty good. Looks really good to me. So this is the interior camera. A lot of people talk about how bad it really is, and it's not terrible. Very $19.99, I guess. So one of the best features about the Z Fold 3 camera system is that if you want to use the rear main camera, which I'm using now to record video or to take a picture, you can actually see yourself in frame on the front screen. So I always know if I'm in focus, if I'm in the center of the frame, maybe I want to be a little bit to the side of it. Just got to make sure not to look down at that, because you'll look like this instead of actually looking at the camera. But it's pretty nice to be able to use that main sensor. This is portrait video outside.
little bit better lighting and things. I've got the portrait mode turned down to 1. It's what I prefer because I'll show you here what it looks like if you max it out. To me, it's just a little too cartoony. So I go down to 1. 1 feels a little more natural. This is a selfie camera on the front screen, not the inside screen. Kind of see how it handles everything, but I think it does pretty good. All right, so we are in portrait mode on the rear main camera. Going to try not to look at that screen on the bottom, but it's nice to kind of frame yourself up with that and show you what that looks like. I think this is the best. The front selfie camera does pretty good, but this right here almost looks like a really nice bokeh from a DSLR camera. Again, I've got the blur behind me set to 1 on Samsung settings. That's what it says, is it sets it to 1, and I think this looks really, really good. I'm not going to say it's quite as good as DSLR or an SLR mirrorless camera. All right, and now for not so good test. This is the under display camera for the device. So it gives you all this blurring in the background and just blows everything out. It's not terrible with video, but the photo quality is really, really bad. So another neat feature that Samsung has is this director's view. I haven't really used this, but it would be really, really good for a live stream. If you wanted to live stream something, you could have this director's view where you're in the frame and what you're seeing is or what's on the camera on the back side. So you got the front camera and the back camera. This does not work with the inside camera, the under display camera. I just tried it, so don't know if that's new news or old news or what, but yeah, this is it's a pretty neat little feature that lets you use both of these cameras. All right, so super steady mode is on now, and in typical Samsung fashion, you cannot take this to full HD 60 with super steady on, and I think that's because it crops in. So you're stuck with super steady mode only shoots full HD 30. So let's walk and see how this does. I'm walking pretty heavily, so you guys tell me what you think in the comments. How's this look? Is it super steady? Alright. Now I'm gonna do a quick pan. Now let's run with it. Just a jog. You can see the focus there. Okay, this is the rear main camera. Gonna kind of just walk around. No active stabilization, no steady mode or anything like that on. Steady shot mode, none of that stuff. It's an overcast kind of day, so not any huge bright sunlight. See how this deals with it. Just moving really fast. Let's just walk with it now. This is just normal walking. Of course, it's on ground. This is just grass, so no concrete or asphalt or sidewalk or anything like that. It's pretty good terrain to see how good the stabilization is. Show the focus now. Example of Samsung's Pro Video on the Z Fold 3. Rear main sensor, no microphone attachments. Check out this focusing. What do you think about that?
regular video mode, 4K 60, rear main sensor, no microphone, no gimbal, Z Fold 3. Let's check out the focusing.
Look, it's a big device. It does so much. This is not just a 30-minute review, send it out the door. You've got a huge, crazy form factor here. You've got so many people that love it, so many people that hate it, so many people that are middle of the road on it, so many people just criticizing the death out of this thing. Guys, to be 100% honest with you, this is a solid device. I definitely recommend getting a case. Great screen, unmatched processing, no hiccups, no lag, no anything. And I would trade that for everything but a good video camera any day of the week. I prefer the thinner form factor. I prefer this very narrow front screen that's easy to one hand. So would I recommend this phone? Yeah. Do I think you should buy it right now? No. And that's where I've been hung up this whole time of why I haven't put out a video, is because I can't sing the praises of this enough. In fact, the only real downside that I think could be fixed in a software update, please, for the love of everything, Samsung, fix that video processing, which could be fixed in a software update, and it should be. But that's it. Dex mode's here. Flex mode's here, S Pen is here. I think capable hardware cameras are here, they're just lacking software. UI is here, OS is gotten extremely good, almost preferable. Great notifications, great haptics, great call quality, amazing screens. I just think you've got a great device here. I think this is an excellent phone. I think that it's got one big major issue, and that's this camera system. Fix that, fix a few aesthetic things, make it a little not quite as thick, which is a little bit lighter, and then just find a freaking aftermarket community for it that can give you a good screen protector and a good case. You're good to go. And when I say good case, Samsung, I mean cover up this ugly hinge. See you guys next time.